find out that multiple stab wounds kill monkeys. Have you seen
I
this?
have not seen this.
God damn it. Oh,
Oh, look, it's recording. That's good.
that is good.
Yeah. But that reminds me of a real-life article from Real Science about chimpanzees causing local extinctions of certain monkeys, like, in their territory.
Really?
Yeah, they like, overhunt monkeys to, like, extirpate them from an area.
So what is your, like, formal training? Are you, like, a scientist or an artist? What the fuck are you?
What the fuck am I? I have no formal training.
In what? Anything?
Training in what? No, in nothing. I dropped out of art school.
Okay.
Before transferring to zookeeper training and dropped out of that. Before finally dropping out of regular college. I just
love giving up. God damn.
I do. I love giving up almost as much as I love dinosaurs. And very luckily for me, all the people who like do research and publish on this stuff are all really cool, and they all have great blogs and they're fun to talk to. So, basically, yeah, that's how I get learned on all this stuff.
And so, or would you say that you're probably going down the artist path more than the scientific one? You just kind of that's just kind of like your muse?
I guess you could say that, yeah. So I'm pursuing more creative endeavors, but
ultimately you just want to be a dinosaur.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, well, you know how like Nick Nocturne is a shape-shifting, four-armed, four-eyed, interdimensional sapient cat. Well, I am in fact a sapient dromaeosaur.
Could multiple stab wounds mean...
Is that an anime character?
Not that I know of.
Oh, okay.
Shorter life.
Yeah, now you know.
Are you watching that video?
Yeah, I am.
God damn it.
Hey, fucking cat. All right, we should start podcasting now.
Oh my god. That one about scientists successfully teach gorilla it will die someday is also amazing.
Is it Harambe?
Oh man, those old school Onion videos are just amazing. Supreme Court death penalty ruled totally badass. Anyway. Yeah, I'm ready to record whatever.
All right, we've been recording for like 5 minutes now. It's been working.
Okay. Do you check the recording to make sure it's working?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I won't be messaging you. Well, like what? 2 months later.
Oh my god. I can't describe how mad I was.
Oh my god, it was terrifying just hearing them describe the seething anger.
They heard my silence really loudly.
I heard your silence. It was, speaking of monsters.
Yes.
Oh, all right. So, welcome everybody, listeners, welcome to the Raptor's Nest. I am Parasicor, Lord of all creatures. And with me here is the one, the only, the sexy.
Sailor Moon. Sexy. Jesus, I love how I put out that video and all of a sudden people are like,
I know.
"Oh, you're sexy." And it's like, okay, that's great that you think that. Thank you for the compliment. My face has been out there for forever. Why are people acting like they've never seen me?
I think everybody just assumed you were an actor. I don't know. But I loved the the main reaction, like,
Yeah, I'm careful that it doesn't build up my ego too much because that's a dangerous thing.
Yeah,
Me with
your ego's
me
big enough already.
me with a good ego is a dangerous combination.
Indeed.
I've got to stay humble.
All right. So tonight, or today, or whenever in time you will be listening to this, we are going to talk about monsters. What makes good monsters, what makes not good monsters, and things of a related nature. So
I hope that we are prepared for this. I normally like to have really in-depth ideas, but we're going into this haphazardly.
To say the least. I mean, I know I'm not.
Are your arms spaghetti? Is there spaghetti on your sweater already?
Wow.
So what makes a good monster?
What makes a good monster? Well, like I was talking to you in our little preamble, that people will never hear because it's lost forever to time.
Because of all of those insensitive things I said.
Yep. Your advocation of eugenics. I wish I was joking about that.
God. Not on humans, just on animals.
Well, we were talking about monkeys, so they were intelligent animals.
Do you want to explain? Because that was an interesting conversation we just had.
No, I think it's funnier and more horrifying for people to imagine that for themselves.
I want that on my gravestone now. It's like, here lies Brandon Patrick. And then just below that, a quote from me. It's like, eugenics, it was good for animals.
Where did it go wrong? So yes, there's here's what you need for a monster to be successful, and that's first of all, we need an element of the unknown, and this will be familiar if anybody is thought at all about horror. Then we've all heard the horror of the unknown. We've all heard that before.
And so I think we should immediately talk about H.R. Giger. And I think people's appreciation of the Alien films and the Xenomorph depend heavily on how much unknown they want to have in that equation. Some people are purists and say that, no, only the first Alien film was successful because of the element of the unknown and gradually learning bits about that unknown. Mm-hmm. And I think people who don't like the latter films have a more extreme view on how much unknown they want. So we start to learn about the Xenomorph. We learn that it has acid blood. We learn kind of its hunting behavior. And then the second movie, Aliens, is more action-y. Mm-hmm. And because of
more about them.
We learn even more about them, and some of them are dying, and so that they become more mortal. They seem a lot less.
Could multiple stab wounds mean shorter lives?
Immortal, so
a new study on
there's less intimidation there. But I think that the fact that their biology is so radically different than anything else that we have on Earth, mm-hmm. that element of alienness, not genuinely not trying to make a pun there, is enough of an unknown and something that you have to become accustomed to for me to still enjoy that film, and indeed all of the Alien films except for Alien vs. Predator 2, because that is complete and total garbage.
Oh, hear.
And same thing with Predator for the same matter. The Predator movies are about learning the behavior of the predator, and the predator learning the behavior of the humans. And so that's kind of that would still, if that movie was played with subtitles for the predator population, if you take that to their planets and show that to them, that would be a horror film for them, especially seeing as Arnold Schwarzenegger makes it out and he's the one who's victorious.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
So that element of the unknown is something that I think is open to interpretation a lot more. I have very radical positions on creepypasta. Yes. So I am to the point where I'm like, I don't even want to credit art. I want it to just be out there ambiguous, even though I do that and break my own rules. And so I can understand people having extreme positions on how much unknown you need, but I think that there should be a conversation about how much is really necessary. And maybe it's more about how unique your unknownness is rather than how unknown something is.
Well, that's actually a great segue into my second point, which is that it's not enough just to have the unknown. It's not enough to just be weird, because being weird is easy. Throw a dictionary into a wood chipper and you'll come out with something weird. What you need is the unknown in a specific context. You need it to be unknown in a certain way. And here's my bullshit example that will hopefully get the point across, but maybe it won't, because I don't know how you react to stimuli.
Okay.
Well, I know how you react to certain stimuli, but not to this stimuli.
Okay. So, are you going to send me propaganda on eugenics?
No, I think you've read enough of that for tonight.
Okay, this should be interesting.
Oh, that's a big image. Oh. All right, so I'm sending you 2 pictures of 2 different animals, and I want you to tell me which animal you think looks weirder, looks stranger.
Are you going to? So one of these animals is going to be more different than the other one.
Yes.
Wait, what?
Yes.
No, I gotcha. I'm just sounding stupid to fill dead air.
Dead air. That's great.
That's what.
Right there.
That was going to be the name of my podcast, but I went with Dead Serious. Both of those are inferior to the other idea for a podcast I had, which of course was Talking Dead, but that was already
taken.
I was already taken, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. There's also Dead Silence.
Dead Silence. Well, no,
I have many names for puns for podcasts involving me.
Well, that's what happens when you pick a title that lends itself so easily to.
Yeah.
But anyway, here's image number 1. Here's image number 2.
Okay. I'm assuming that these are on screen for people who are listening to this.
If they're
or not,
I'll put them on screen.
One is a brontosaurus.
Correct.
And the other one is a thing.
Is a thing. Yes, well said.
It is an elephant with a very bizarre mouth. Mm-hmm. What is that second thing?
That second thing is a gomphotherium. That is an extinct relative of elephants that they lived up until a few million years ago. And again, I'm not sure whether or not people will be able to see this in the final product, but just for clarification, it has its lower jaw. The incisors are gigantic and form a shovel, a large protruding shovel. Hence the common moniker for these creatures, which is shovel tuskers.
Oh, that thing's so gross looking.
So yeah,
it's like 1,000 times more gross looking than an elephant.
So again, just sort of like a initial reaction, which of these animals looks weirder to you?
Definitely the freak elephant.
The freak elephant. Correct answer. Here's why it looks weirder. Now, if we're just talking about gross anatomy, the Brontosaurus wins. We're talking an animal with such extreme anatomy there is nothing like it on Earth today. And that's the point. We don't view it in the context of anything alive today. We view it as dinosaur. And as a dinosaur, within that context, it looks very normal. That's what dinosaurs look like. But when you look at the gomphotherium, you are looking at it within the context of elephant. So you look at it and you think, That's wrong for an elephant.
Oh boy, is it. That very much so is. And that brings me to probably one of my favorite artists, top 5 visual artists, Masahiro Ito, the guy who was the monster artist for Silent Hill and creatures like Pyramid Head and Valtiel and those kinds of things. Those are monsters that are distortions of the human body, and we view the human body as something sacred. And so there's a lot of monster designs out there that I would say are lackluster humanoids that really aren't.
God, yes.
Yeah, that aren't really doing enough to violate our expectation of what a human should look like. And Masahiro Ito is still active, still working on stuff. I just had a game come out called Nightcry that he was a part of. He's very good at taking the human form and violating it in an interesting way. In the case of Valtiel, in a sort of subtle way, it's kind of just a guy in a smock, and he's kind of similar to Pyramid Head, but there is something off about the way that it's illustrated. It does violate expectations, and the same thing is true of Pyramid Head, but in a more bombastic way, where you have this thing that is its head that is so inhuman and so clearly designed by like, human structure, and that's its head. But the rest of it is just purely organic, that you look at it and it's very clearly in pain, and just as like you look at a dog and the dog does a little cute dog smile, and it doesn't even matter if the dog is happy or not, the dog's still giving you like a dog smile. Pyramid Head looks like it's in pain even if it's not in pain. You know what I mean? It gives you that visual.
Yeah, and now full disclosure, I know nothing about Silent Hill, but just looking at the images of Pyramid Head online, or if he were to go by his official moniker, Red Pyramid Thingy, then what's really striking to me about that is that we have obviously human anatomy, very specifically human anatomy, and then on top is just this geometric shape that he does not look like a living thing. He looks like a piece of modern art.
And that dovetails into the person who was the inspiration for Masahiro Ito, probably his biggest influence, the artist Francis Bacon, who was very good at evoking images of very raw pain as well. And Francis Bacon was originally a interior designer, and so that kind of postmodern, like losing meaning, like structure influencing human body kind of design is really unsettling, because it kind of depicts humanity as a machine. And for me, whenever I start thinking of like individual functions of humans, it kind of makes you question your mortality, or reminds you that like how fragile you are.
Yep. Like if even one of these cogs stopped working,
yeah, you're fucked. And it's like when you start thinking about breathing, and then all of a sudden you're like making a conscious effort to breathe, it like starts freaking you out a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Like even if you've kind of acclimatized to that over the years, it still is kind of like, ugh, God, don't remind me that I'm breathing. Just let me breathe without thinking about it, as my body naturally does. And all of this happens on a very subtle level. When you look at this design, these thoughts don't necessarily come to your mind, but your body recognizes them. Your mind recognizes these frustrations and these problems with these kinds of images.
Yeah. Juxtaposition, I think, is horrifying. Can be horrifying if done right. And in particular, juxtaposition of human and machine, certainly biological and machine, which can...
Yeah, you can do a lot of things with juxtaposition. Juxtaposition can be funny, it can be heartwarming, and it can be it's when you have a good juxtaposition, it's really clever, I think.
Yes, definitely.
Kind of a vague thing to say, but it's true.
It is true. I remember there a while back, Slimebeast started a subreddit for creepypasta prompts, and I drew an image that I posted there to prompt people, and the image is of a thing. I don't really have a name for it, but
we'll call it Thing 1.
Thing 1. All right. Well, Thing 1 has the body of a woman, very obviously a woman's body, naked body, very obvious breasts, but...
Like in this?
Like, wait, what?
I'm liking where this is going.
Oh, okay. Oh, I didn't hear you for a second. I'm like, okay. Well, you're really going to like the next part, which is that for her head, Thing 1 has a baboon's head.
I'm getting into this.
I should have known. Now it's not a straight up baboon's head. It's hairless. It lacks lips, and it has these very vivid gums with all the teeth exposed. So
that's also very Francis Bacon.
Yeah, it's very that idea of raw. Your gums are very raw and delicate. Even just breathing the wrong way will cause them to hurt.
Yeah. Oh man, gums are weird.
They are weird and painful.
They're just lumps of flesh with hard bone coming out of them in bits.
Oh god, yes. Oof. But yeah, the whole impetus for the design of that creature was I want to take something horrific and ugly and put it with something beautiful, so that way it's confusing and unsettling, hopefully, to the viewer.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
So, I'm trying to think, we should probably talk about what monsters do.
What monsters do? That's a good question, yeah.
They spook you out. They stand in the woods and teleport, and that's all a monster needs to do.
That's all a monster needs to do is stand in the woods and teleport. Doesn't the monster also need to wear a business suit?
Yes. And have... one of the things it needs to do is not have a face.
Not have a face, yes.
This is not at all going back to the discussion of how it looks.
No. So I guess now we're talking about Slender Man.
I suppose we are, because Slender Man, as I'd like to say, changed the game. Slender Man is unique in that he kind of has this whole Lovecraftian thing going on in a literary sense.
Yeah.
Because this character was put out there by one artist, and then a bunch of other artists came and added to the mythos, just as what happened with Lovecraft. So even if the Lovecraftian aspects of Slender Man are not as pronounced as they are in some other things, he has the tentacles and stuff, and he's hard to understand, and you can't really understand him, and that's Lovecraftian. But the bigger thing is that a bunch of people came along and started writing for him. But he's got this thing going on, and that's all great. But the thing that I think really made this character take off is a confluence of, he was a cool design, just this cool little picture. People started writing him, and he had these powers to distort a video recording. And the more that you see him, the more that he appears. And so this became a Tulpa-like character. The more you think about it, the more real it becomes. It's digital. It has this cool, unique teleporting power, and it becomes more real the more you think about it. I think that, and then a video game really capitalized on those things, and they made a video game that really shows his qualities in video game format. So this character has gained all of this steam because he is the horror character of now. The digital thing is very now, so he's manipulating that's very much so in vogue. The teleportation thing is unique in its own way. That doesn't necessarily have to do with now, but it's unique enough and disconnected enough from horror characters that came before him that it feels very alien. You'll see the Shape from Halloween walking through the woods. There's not like this teleportation aspect to it. It's more like a force of nature. The teleportation kind of feels otherworldly, and it almost feels digital as well. DuckTales nice with like the digital noise stuff. So I think that it's a character of now, and that's why it's so iconic, is because it's so different than everything else that came before it.
In some ways.
In those regards.
Yeah.
In terms of how it functions,
right.
It's different. Meanwhile, you have 80s slasher horror-flicks characters, now I'm imagining a Jetty, a Freddy X Jason fanfiction. Those characters are killers, and killing is really, in a very gruesome way, is their function. And I think our generation has kind of rejected those characters for how obvious they are. And it's not necessarily a bad thing that they're obvious, but I think that the people who don't like them for that reason, or dislike them even, don't like them for that reason.
Right.
So what other kind of interesting functions do you think makes a monster work?
In terms of what it does?
Yeah.
We need to, again, it sometimes it can go back to this idea of the unknown and the known mixed together, so where we have a recognizable context with something unusual and unknown within it. So the birds in Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds, these are normal birds physically. These are non-threatening animals. These are seagulls, sparrows, crows. And unless you have some sort of avian-centric phobia, then the sheer look of them is not going to, have your blood run cold with dread. What makes them effective is what they do, and what they do is kill people. Now, on its own,
they also kind of plan.
Yes.
And so you're giving these clearly not human things, insidious human properties. But yeah, continue. I interrupted you.
No, that's good. That's a good point. They plan. They're calculating, and yet that's all we know about their planning. We don't know exactly what their plan is or how it functions. Like,
it's kind of weird. I just brought up the Shape from Halloween, which is a humanoid character devoid of humanity, and now we're talking about something that isn't human, and that is indeed multiple creatures that kind of has a sentience, like a hive mind of one human. So it's the unexpected there.
Right, and I think I think those two things are playing off the same thing, which is we have something familiar and something unfamiliar together. The familiarity gives us a context in which to view the non-familiarity, to let us know this is wrong, this is unsettling, this is bad.
I think that you can see similar techniques used in Psycho as well, where you have spoilers for a movie that's how old now? 60 years?
About that.
It's getting up there.
Yeah,
about that. But the
spoiler alert, it was his sled. Just continue.
That character is taking on the unexpected, and what is really unexpected about it, I guess we should explain it in detail. His mother's dead, and he's worried about his mother, and they keep building up this mother that's supposed to be evil and everything, but his mother is just his own psyche. He's got dissociative identity disorder, and he's pretending to be his mother. So his mother is overprotective, and you're freaking out because there is this unnatural thing inside of him, and that is his version of his mind, that is his mother. And so you're seeing this boy hiding this body who is like frantic and scared and wants to protect his mother, and you're like seeing him bite his nails, and he's like freaking out when he's trying to get rid of the body, and at the same time he's the killer.
Right.
He's like completely not acknowledging at all that he is the murderer. And that is what is creepy about that. It's not that he did a murder, it's that for this completely insane reason, he doesn't feel responsible for it.
Yes.
Which is, yeah, Hitchcock's good at that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Total asshole, but he knew what scared people.
Man, how many of us aren't assholes or related people?
Well, even just art-related people, creative people.
Oh my, yeah, it's that's why I don't want people to tell me I'm sexy. I gotta avoid that ego.
Oh, you're disgusting. You're hideous.
Thank you.
You are scum.
Just yeah, yep. There we go. Happy with that.
Equilibrium.
What are some other unique horror mechanics out there? The things that monsters do.
What do monsters do? Well, they eat people.
They eat people, which is not very disturbing until it's done by a human.
Right.
Then people start freaking out. Then it's cannibalism. But the SCP Foundation has something that I've always found interesting. I'm not a huge fan of the SCP Foundation because they're super hit or miss, but they do have the classifications of safe, Euclid, and Keter, and these are different kinds of objects with varying levels of danger to them and varying levels of varying qualities to them. I think that is really an interesting concept if you're dealing with monsters and things that are otherworldly, because not all monsters are killers or are even dangerous. A lot of the times there are things that are pitiful or are playing on your emotions and exposing vulnerabilities within you. So I think that is an interesting thing to do as well, even though those kinds of monsters usually don't get as much attention. Silent Hill has a bunch of them, but I'm not going to enumerate all of them.
Although I think sometimes the pitiful monsters do get some attention. Just jumping immediately to mind are Karloff's Frankenstein, King Kong, even Godzilla, depending on the interpretation.
And Lord knows there's a bunch of them.
Oh god, there's so many.
Man, are they trying? I've heard rumors that they're trying to start like a Marvel Cinematic Universe thing
kaiju,
with
kaiju.
They
are. We have a King Kong movie coming out next year, and then there's going to be King Kong versus Godzilla. There's going to be another...
Is this Japan or America?
It's all America. Japan is doing their own
standalone Godzilla movies now. That's called Shin Godzilla, right? I think it is.
I'm not. I think so. I'm not positive though. I'm not going to claim to be a Japanese kaiju expert here, but
that'd be really cool though if they did kaiju from around the world and it's the same universe, but it's different companies from different countries, and then Japan has Godzilla and America has King Kong, and we do like international kaiju wars,
it's the Kaiju Olympics.
and then we make them fight.
It's the Kaiju Olympics. We have Gorgo from England. We have Reptilicus from Denmark.
And we're you got a troll hunter. Get the trolls get the trolls involved. That's Germany, isn't it? Or Sweden?
Maybe. I think it's like Scandinavian.
Scandinavia, I think you're right. But that is those are monsters. Kaiju are monsters, and their cultural force is they come from Japan, and Japan is a place that has to deal with nuclear fallout, fallout over nuclear fallout, natural disasters. Being surrounded by the sea is a big part of Japanese culture. These things have a confluence are a confluence that has created Godzilla and kaijus to begin with, like as a whole. So that is representative of what's going on in Japan, this force of nature, this thing that is unnatural. All of these things tell you something about Japanese society.
Mhm.
And so the way that it functions in destroying society by, crushing these buildings and these kinds of things are all aspects that you can see in Japan.
Yes. Because Godzilla is sort of the perfect marriage of both natural disaster and man-made catastrophe.
Which are two things that are like on opposite ends of the spectrum. And I think personally, the art that I find the best is art that heavily mixes its metaphors and is really confused. And because then you're not trying to enforce a political viewpoint onto something, or a social or philosophical viewpoint. You can just kind of explore it and enjoy it because it's not reaching at you.
Right.
Godzilla is effective as informing people about environmental issues because it's not telling you what to think.
Yes. Yeah, Godzilla is not Fern Gully, thankfully.
No. But there are multiple interpretations of Godzilla, incarnations of him. But you can kind of see the same thing with, I was talking about Predator. Predator is sort of this movie about war, and it's, we didn't understand what we were getting into when we went into Vietnam, and that movie's kind of dealing with that pretty explicitly as well. And then you have this alien, and through fighting each other, the alien, Jungle Hunter, I believe is the name that they've given him, and Arnold Schwarzenegger's character, I forget his name. They come to...
is it Duke? I think.
Duke. They come to understand one another through fighting. They come to understand each other's techniques and language, like literally their language, but also like the language of war teaches them about each other. And then in the second movie, that explicitly happens when the main character in that successfully kills an alien in a duel and is rewarded for it, and is like kind of perplexed by how the other aliens, how the other predators react to that. So it's kind of a horror movie, and they have a function to it, but it's also kind of funny because in the end, there is that understanding, and I think that's why people don't find those movies as scary as the alien movies.
Yeah.
Because there is that resolution at the end.
Yeah, the Predators I just find so fascinating.
Because they have a really cool culture.
They do.
Their culture is awesome. That's why Predators is my favorite one, because it's all about predator culture. Have you seen the third one?
I have. Yep.
Oh man, it's so good. And Adrian Brody is like amazing in it, and Tobey Maguire is incredible. No, that's not Tobey Maguire.
It's Topher Grace.
Topher Grace. Oh man, is he amazing in that movie? If you haven't seen Predators, go see Predators, man. Even if you haven't seen the other Predator movies, that is the one to watch first.
You've heard of the new Predator movies being made now, right?
Yes.
And that seems like they're going to explore even more of the culture.
And how it is all about this like rite of passage that they have, which they explored in the Alien vs. Predator movies, and they did a great job there. But there was like this tradition that involved the xenomorphs, and here it's much more about French culture, where these monsters have been exiled from other monsters,
Right.
And so it's all kinds of confusing. Where you have the concept of monster is just so beautifully explored in this movie, because you have humans that are monsters, you have monsters that are given humanity, you have monsters that are given humanity conditionally in response to other monsters. It's very bizarre.
Yes.
And it functions so well because of how it tells all of this stuff with very little dialogue.
Yep. Yes, that's something that's always fascinated me about all the Predator movies, and Predators probably does this the most, is conveying the culture not through exposition, but via subtle visual hints.
And a lot of those visual hints are just how seeing the world through the Predator's eyes does a beautiful job of that.
Yep.
I know that Kubrick got a lot of acclaim for The Shining, in that they're like, oh, look, it's a horror film where you see the monster all along. And there is certainly a lot of merit to that, but I think people saw kind of like what I would call the consumability of the Predator movie, of the first one, and said like, oh, that's not as high-minded. But you're seeing the perspective of the monster the whole time. You understand their motives by the end of the movie just as well as you do the motives of the humans. Sometimes even more, you understand the motive of the Predators. God, I love Predators.
Yes.
Predators are awesome.
The Uwacha, I believe, is their...
Yeah, I can never pronounce that. So I didn't even attempt it. What do you prefer? Are you a Xenomorph or Uwacha guy?
I gotta go with Xenomorphs. I'll always go with... To me, it's like... You can always gauge how much I'm going to love a creature by how little like a human being it is.
I would say I like Uwacha better. The only exception is the Tarkatan Xenomorph from Mortal Kombat. Do you know Baraka from Mortal Kombat?
I do not.
There's a race in Mortal Kombat that have these blades that come out of their arms, and instead of programming in a whole new character that has those things and just letting you play one of those in the new Mortal Kombat, they had a guest character that is a Xenomorph. And to give you that play style, they implanted a Xenomorph in one of these races that are called the Tarkatan. So, like, it comes out as a Xenomorph, but it has the blades that come out of its arms, so it's really fucking cool.
Nice. Yeah, in terms of culture... Yeah, the Predators, the Uwacha, whatever you want to call them, definitely, absolutely fantastic. With these new Predator movies, I hope they don't ruin it by giving us too much.
That's the thing, is I think that they've done a nice job throughout the films, really. I think people kind of don't like the second film as much. I think it did a wonderful job.
Me too.
Of telling you about these characters and what they do. And I think because it's draped in like a lot of 80s bullshit, people don't like it for that reason. But it's still functioning the same way, of giving you the slow drip feed of their culture.
Yes. Yeah, and I've been loving that so far as it grows throughout the series. And I'm just worried that with these new movies, they might just like spoon feed tons and tons of information in a completely uninteresting way.
The reason that I am not worried about that is because they told you so much in Predators without using words. There's the only exposition in the movie comes from Lawrence Fishburne's character, and that goes in a really interesting direction too. So it's worth having that little bit of exposition. And you don't even know how much you can trust what he's saying. Right. There are certain things that are confirmed, but since that character is insane,
unreliable.
Yeah, pretty unreliable. He's saying that the monsters can hear you from far distances away, but it's kind of like it becomes clear that that's bullshit because it's just paranoia. And you probably don't even think about that until the second time you watch the movie, that like, oh, he was probably full of shit. And he only survived because of how paranoid he was. He didn't know what rules that he was following that were working and which ones he just made up in his head.
Yes.
Because he didn't fully understand those characters. He didn't understand the Uwacha.
And another thing I love about them is, it's always fun to me to look at their trophies that they always either actually put up or leave behind. So if you look carefully, you might see like a dinosaur skull in a Predator.
Yeah.
And that's always, and again, it's conveying a lot about their history and their relationship with the Earth totally visually.
Yeah, and that's what's so good about it is when you, it's very much so. If you haven't gone to what do they call it? I think it's called Xenopedia, the Wikipedia for Xenomorph and Yuacha universe. There are all these little details that you miss, and a lot of them you will pick up visually. But little details like that tell you about their culture and their involvement in the Earth and their involvement in other planets that is really interesting.
Yes.
Just like that stuff. And there's like theories going around that Jungle Hunter was probably not well liked in the Yuacha community, and things of that nature. And there's kind of like this idea that the main character in the first Predator movie wasn't, too friendly with the military anymore, and so was the Yuacha wasn't friendly with his culture anymore.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
So they're kind of both pariahs in their own right. Well, as much as I love talking about these two monsters and how much they get right, because they do, there are other monsters out there, and I think we should bring up something that, again, functions differently. And let's talk about something that doesn't work as a monster. I think the Rake really doesn't work well as a monster.
I really want to like the Rake.
Me too.
But no, it doesn't work.
It's not like Jeff the Killer, where to me it's a stupid image and a stupid story. Like, the Rake is a cool image and then a really not good story.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know what the story behind the Rake is.
Well, here's the thing: is the story behind the Rake is they're trying to pass it off as though, one, the Rake has otherworldly knowledge, and two, he kind of observes people at times. But what I dislike about the Rake is that they're trying to base things off what I would call alien techniques or cryptozoology techniques when you're talking about when you watch like documentaries about like Bigfoot hunting and these kinds of people. And I make fun of these people. Like, I'm fine with making fun of these people, but I don't want to get down on them because they have their own beliefs, and that's kind of like insulting people's religion, and I'm okay with doing that, like, fuck your religion, fuck your Bigfoot and everything, but I want to have like a constructive conversation, so I always feel
a constructive conversation about fucking Bigfoot. You heard it right here, people.
Yes. So I want to have like a constructive conversation without insulting them, but the shit's made up. And so I'm going to insult him anyway. There's no way around it, but the stuff's made up, and there's this desire to, I want to believe. The reason that catchphrase from the X-Files is so iconic is because it really does capture that feeling of like, I want to believe in Bigfoot. I want to believe in aliens. And I think that's what the Rake is going for, is I want to believe in the Rake, but the story just isn't well written enough for it to work. And the motivations of the thing are so ill-defined that it's not a good kind of unknown. It's a cool monster design paired with some contradictory information that doesn't really give you any sort of resolution. And that's the problem with it. It doesn't need to be concretely explained, obviously. We've talked this whole time about how important that ambiguity is and that otherworldliness, but there's no motivation behind it. And sometimes it kills things and sometimes it doesn't. So at the end of the day, it's trying to be one thing, but at the end it's just a killer. Yeah. Is how it functions, is just a killer. It's just pretty much, yeah. That's why I don't think very highly of that design.
Yeah. To me, it kind of goes back to something you've talked about a lot in your analysis videos and your creepypasta analysis in general, which is that when it comes to like explanations and like what the fuck is going on here, we need a middle ground between having all the answers and having no answers. We need a window. Yeah. We need to narrow down the possible answers to a select few.
I'm gonna call this dead pilot handful theory. You gotta have a handful of answers.
Handful theory.
Trademark. OC theory. Don't steal.
Don't steal, please.
I think that why that is important is because you need to be able to come to conclusions on your own. The story has to make you want more, but not like make it to where you can't find answers for yourself. There's got to be information there for you to analyze and come to conclusions on. The Wraith really doesn't do that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, what are some other big creepypasta monsters that are like that kind of have cool images and fail
I
to...
feel like there aren't a whole lot of what we'd call creatures or monsters. It's more characters.
Yeah,
Like
that's true.
Jeff the Killer and Tiki Toby and all that shit.
Yeah, and I think why those fail as monsters is because, one, we understand too much about them. Two, we understand too much about the author.
Oh, yes.
We know everything there is to know about the author of... We don't know who the author of Jeff the Killer is, but we know exactly who the author of Jeff the Killer is. I hope people can understand what I just said and what I mean by it.
If they don't, they're probably a fan of Jeff the Killer.
Yes. So overall, I think that it fails for that reason. But if you look at my catalog of stories, you will see that does not mean I do not think humans can't be monsters.
Oh no, humans can make great monsters.
Most of my monsters are humans. I think that humans can violate your expectations in very interesting ways.
Humans are the best at violating your expectations because humans, more than any other creatures, know what your expectations are.
It's very true. Trailing off, I had a point at some point and I lost it.
Oh, sorry about that.
No, I lost it like on my own accord. Truncate all of this silence.
Editing, what is that?
Shit. Where the fuck was my mind?
Well, one thing that I just kind of thought of is that I think another reason why, Jeff the Killer and his army of clones don't make good monsters, if they even make monsters at all, if they even qualify, is because I don't think they're even meant to be scary. I think they're meant for these, frustrated adolescent, mostly boys, let's be honest, to live out some sort of stupid fantasy, which is fine. I mean, I'd be lying my ass off if I sat here and said I've never indulged in any wish fulfillment writing or reading.
Oh, very much so. Yeah. This is a discussion that's supposed to be about monsters, but in terms of creepypasta, there's not really room for wish fulfillment in creepypasta. It's supposed to be about violating our expectations, and I think, to go back to my work, I'm not trying to plug it, but like if you hear my stories, a lot of them start off as wish fulfillment and then don't go there. Kind of your wish fulfillment is kind of broken. So I have a story called Active Watcher where our narrator sees like these orgies and he's like, oh, I want to be a part of these orgies. And he goes and joins it, and then afterwards they go beat up an old man in a public bathroom. And it turns out that that's the culture there, is that this orgy group will go have sex and then just go beat up some random person, especially old people. And so it's like, oh, that's a violation of what it was. It's like, here's a happy ending. I gotta have, this orgy, and then nope. Not what you were expecting. You then end up complicit in some gross activity that you don't approve of.
It's good timing that you bring up that story now, because I only just read it for the first, or not read it, but listened to it the first time yesterday.
That's good. That's a weird story I wrote.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Monsters, man. I had other monsters I wanted to talk about. Shit. What were these other monsters?
I don't know. Maybe just to briefly touch on bugs. Bugs are creepy.
Oh, yeah, bugs are awful. So are fish.
Oh God, fish.
Terrible.
My one of my friends, fellow by the name of Darren Naish, he is a paleontologist who runs a blog called Tetrapod Zoology. Which, for those of you who do not know, tetrapods are all of our four-legged animals and anything descended from four-legged animals. So, in short, amphibians, reptiles including birds, and mammals. because he is a paleontologist, and a vertebrate paleontologist, oftentimes he has to write about fish. In fact, he's currently writing a textbook that is about maybe 70% fish, and he hates it. He's like, probably 75% of his Twitter feed is just him complaining about how much he hates fish.
You know who likes the fish? The Japanese like the fish. If you want to help the Japanese, call the number below. Thank you for helping the Japanese.
You know what else the Japanese like? Apples.
What? Oh. I can't stress enough how much that was a war.
And you three are veterans of that war.
We're Purple Hearts of
Actually,
that war.
we shouldn't say that, because the war is ongoing. It's not over.
We're going to be redeployed at some point. Oh, man, that Fright House Screamers stream was amazing. Fantastic. And filled with 9/11 jokes.
So many 9/11 jokes. Oh, we are going straight to hell.
Yeah. So, fish are gross.
Fish are gross.
The monster I remember that I wanted to talk about, Mothman. Oh man, I love Mothman. If you don't know about Mothman, Mothman is
who is also a moth.
Who is also a bird, who is also an owl. It's very vague. Mothman is an urban legend from Point Pleasant, West Virginia. That's the first time I ever went on a road trip, was to West Virginia, just to see all of the Mothman nonsense. And everywhere we went, we brought up Mothman, and all of the locals hated us because it's a really small town, and all of everyone there's very little tourism there, and there are very few people there. But like every time someone comes to town, everyone's like, "Oh God, they're gonna talk about Mothman." And lo and behold, we went there and we talked about Mothman and aggravated everyone.
I'm totally now going to go there and just talk about Mothman to everyone I see.
The people who work at the Mothman Museum hate themselves.
Wait a minute, hold on a second. Back up. There's a Mothman Museum?
It's a store.
Oh, now I have to go.
Yeah. I have Mothman shot glasses. But yeah, so Mothman is a person who allegedly predicted the future and talked to various locals and this kind of thing. And so it's the qualities of Mothman, even though it's an urban legend, it is a monster that people tell story of, and its job is predicting the future, such as this bridge that collapsed in Point Pleasant, and Mothman was said to have predicted this catastrophe coming, and people have also said that they saw Mothman at the Japanese tsunami. Please donate to the Japanese.
Please donate to Mothman.
To bring it right back, please donate to Mothman. So so people view him as either a harbinger of bad things coming, or as a person warning you of bad things coming. So that is a unique role for a monster to have, and that's why I like Mothman so much, because he is a warning. He is the canary in the coal mine. And kind of a forlorn character, because he has this like vision of the future, and he knows all these bad things that are going to happen. And doing that, you would naturally become a very depressed monster.
If you can't tell anybody about it.
Especially if you're having troubles telling people about it. Like, you can, but it's probably a lot of work.
Well, can Mothman talk?
According to some people, yes. According to the movie Mothman Prophecies, yes. Mothman has entire phone conversations with people.
Mothman canon, I'm assuming.
No. People hate that movie. And they should, because it's not good. If you're a Mothman fan, you should watch it. But that's not to say it's good. It's actually really bad, but you should still watch it if the character's concept interests you that much. So that is a really interesting monster to me. A monster that serves a function, that is the bearer of bad news.
Yeah, that's interesting. It might also be prudent then to delve into another realm of monsters, which is cryptozoology, since Mothman is a cryptid, quote unquote.
Yeah, Mothman is so interesting because he occupies this weird world of, like, a lot of the people who like him don't believe in him. He's also a, like, cryptozoology thing, and he's also, like, an urban legend, and he's also, like, a ghost. Like, Mothman is a Renaissance monster. He doesn't like being pigeonholed.
It's like being typecast.
He's like Kanye West. It's like, I'm a rapper, but I'm also a fashion designer / presidential candidate / Mothman.
Kanye West is Mothman. We just broke it. You just heard it here, folks. Mothman is Kanye West.
Okay, tweeting it out right now.
We've got to get this out to the world. The world has to know.
Is at Kanye West actually Mothman?
Oh shit! Now Mothman's outside my
I've
window.
never seen. Ask him why all of his albums past graduation are kind of both in the same place at the same time. Prove me wrong, Twitter. There we go.
Right. Well, this has officially been a productive conversation.
Yeah, because we're going to break this case.
You heard it here first, folks.
So now we're going to talk about Kanye West.
Speaking of monsters.
And Twisted Dark Fantasies. No. Oh my god, Kanye West is actually Jeff the Killer.
No. Kanye the West.
So cryptids, okay. So what cryptid should we talk about?
Hard to say. There are so many to choose from. I think cryptids can be divided into a couple different categories. I think we
tourism.
Definitely one.
There's the because we have the Mothman. We got so Mothman is also a tourist monster.
He himself is a tourist.
You have Nessie. Yes.
That's why he was in Japan.
Nessie.
To predict the tsunami.
Or West Virginia and then Japan.
Oh.
We have Nessie.
Nessie, yes.
Loch Ness Monster is definitely a tourist one.
Here's the thing.
Its function is tourism. What else would Nessie do? Nessie's just out there.
Are we talking like in terms of the purposes they serve? Yeah.
Yeah. The functions that they serve. Nessie is a tourist monster to bring tourism, which is fine. It'd be nice if Nessie was there for us to actually see.
But not existing can kind of get in the way of that. So
yeah. Are there any other tourist monsters? Big tourist monsters?
I think a lot of
there's like the classical hoaxes, like the Fiji fish and stuff like that. Fiji mermaid.
I know that a lot of monsters will be exploited via tourism to some degree, no matter how obscure they are.
But then there are the ones that are just that.
The sellouts.
Yeah, the sellouts of the cryptozoology world. It's funny. When is this going out, by the way?
Probably soonish. Why do you ask?
Oh, because at the end of the month, I have something that is on this subject.
You know what? Well, it's weird you mentioned that because I also have, as part of my October thing, I have a story that is about the chupacabra. But it's
really?
About
Okay.
The chupacabra.
I like the chupacabra. Chupacabra's a good one.
It's funny you say that because my narrator explicitly in the story states that chupacabra is his least favorite cryptid.
Chupacabra is cool because it feeds on livestock, and so its purpose is pissing off farmers.
You just hate farmers.
No. I like farmers. Farmers are cool. I just think that pissing them off is a worthwhile endeavor.
Well, I mean, yeah, if you are a blood-sucking demonic entity and you have nothing better to do, then, I mean, pissing off farmers, it's a worthwhile use of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but depending on... Yeah, when are we putting this out?
I mean, I can hold on to it if
within the month.
Coincide with something.
Yeah, hold on to it. I am releasing a video called Big, and Big is about the difference between the sellouts and the people who are genuine believers in cryptozoology. And it's about a skeptic cameraman, who doesn't believe in Bigfoot, and then two Bigfoot hunters. And the person telling the story escapes a situation that goes south because they go on a trip to hunt Bigfoot, and one of them brings along a shotgun because they are Bigfoot hunters, and someone, a prominent figure in the Bigfoot world, gets shot while inside of a Bigfoot costume.
For a second, I thought you said he was going to get shot by Bigfoot.
Bigfoot with a shotgun. And so this is all about the remaining true believer escaping this person who has still a single shotgun shell left, who accidentally murdered a Bigfoot, which is just a Bigfoot hunter in a costume, and is trying to escape this person with photographic evidence of dead Bigfoot.
Dead Bigfoot.
So that story is
to Dead Bart.
Yes. So that is my story about true believing in cryptozoology, and it's called Big. And I was being a smartass in my "What am I doing this October?" And I said I was releasing something big, and the name of the video is going to be Big.
In here, we were just thinking it was about your dick, but you know.
Again, that ego.
Too easy.
Sometimes the truth hurts. At least that's what the ladies tell me.
Snap.
Being clever, being witty, which in Shakespeare terms also means having a big dick.
Did not know that.
Moving right away from dick jokes.
We're never too far away.
How big from dick jokes? How big do you think Bigfoot's penis is? Because you can't see it from under the hair.
Also, most of the Bigfoots that have been reported sighting, including the famous Patterson footage, are supposedly female. But it all depends. Here's the thing, though. I'm going to say Bigfoot has a very small penis, and here's why. In primates, there is a correlation, seemingly, between genital size and promiscuity. So, chimps have huge genitals, and they fuck each other constantly. Whereas gorillas have small genitals, and they are not as promiscuous. Since Bigfoot is so rare, obviously has small population size, ergo not promiscuous.
Or, conversely, there's not a whole lot of Bigfoots, and so those Bigfoots are really desperate. We got some really thirsty, I'm failing for the words. What would you call something that's not Homo sapien?
Hominid?
We have some really thirsty hominids, and therefore big genitals, because they'll fuck anything that moves.
Oh, God. This reminds me...
This is like that whole thing of, like, they're mining where the diamonds are. It's like, so they'll be where the diamonds are. It's like, no, they'll be where the diamonds are because they're mining for them. It's like, no, but, like, the logic just breaks down real quick.
But this reminds me, so the guy I mentioned earlier, Darren, who does the Tetrapod Zoology blog, he's also big into cryptozoology, but he approaches it from a skeptical standpoint. He and a couple other people, John Conway and C.M. Kozman, wrote and illustrated a book called The Cryptozoologicon, which discusses about 25 or so different cryptids, breaks down why they really probably don't exist, but then turns around and says, okay, well, what if they were real? What kinds of animals would they be? And then, tries to come up with possible, identities for a number of cryptids. And they come up with some weird stuff, like the chupacabra being a giant, sanguivorous possum relative. Things like that.
Yeah, I think that is a very interesting thing to explore. And whenever, especially filmmakers, take that kind of information on board, you can really tell the difference. And so you can see all of the information that they took on board when creating the xenomorph. And because they had a clear canon of scientific knowledge about the xenomorph that they don't even share with the viewers, they come up with this idea. It's like, here's how it reproduces, and here's its blood, and here's how its behavior. Because there is such a clear, defined set of science, of pseudoscience, but like rules for this character that are set behind the scenes, it works effectively. Same thing with Slenderman and Marble Hornets. The operator in Marble Hornets works so effectively because even though they don't share all the rules, you can see that there is a rule book that the creators have for that entity.
I'm very big on. You might find this hard to believe. I do not like Michael Crichton as a writer.
Michael Crichton.
Yeah.
Crichton. We've had this conversation privately.
But here's one thing I didn't mention, though, is that what I hate about Crichton is that he's the sort of person who can do all the research in the world about a subject, and then, one, clearly still doesn't understand anything about it, and then two, will spend pages and pages meticulously explaining all the research he's done in his books. It's like, we get it, dude. You did your homework. And writers do need to do their homework.
That's what I find bizarre about you as a writer, is you have all of this knowledge, and then you focus on like more character-driven visual stuff than the science. And so the science is kind of like background information to like a personal narrative. And that like, if I was as well read as you are, because I'm not well read, if I was as well read as you are, I would like flaunt all of that information like an asshole.
It's hard not to. Honestly, I think the only reason I can resist doing that in my writing is because that's what I do at my day job. That's what I do.
That's a good point.
I get up in front of people of all ages and just vomit information at them. But it's hard. And one thing that's really hard is knowing when to draw the line and saying, okay, would this character know that, well, like, for example, when I was writing the Zabumafu Lost episode, would that...
Yeah.
Is my narrator smart enough to know the difference between lemurs and monkeys?
The answer is it's a definite no.
He's not smart enough to know the difference between a lot of things. He doesn't know the difference between Chris and Martin.
That is the most bizarre thing, is that you wrote this, and it's like you're writing from the perspective of a narrator who's writing a bad narrator. It's fucking weird. And now we're kind of like trailing off into other conversations, but it's interesting, so who cares? But from a writing standpoint, that is a thing that you have to be considering, and it gets frustrating when I have to narrate my stories, and it's like, I just want to write a chick every once in a while. And so, like, I really have to, like, focus on writing male characters because I have a male voice, and I have to focus on writing American characters because I speak English and I have an American accent, and the only other accent I can do is a Southern accent, so I'm kind of limited in that regard as well.
Fantastic use of so far.
Thank you. So I'm limited in that regard, and so I'm limited in the kind of knowledge I can use.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, I want to, write a short horse story about the gashi shops in Japan. They're these little candy shops, and I have some ideas for that, but those only exist in Japan, so I don't want to write because I can't speak from a Japanese perspective. You know what I mean?
I've had moments where I'm like, I have an idea for a story, I want to set it here, but then I have to do all this research into, like when I was writing the story about when I was writing My Savior, I actually had to look up like colloquialisms of Arkansas because I didn't trust myself to write from that perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to writing, my big thing is write what you know, because if you write what you don't know, it's gonna be very stupid.
And that's the thing too, is writing what you know and then trying to pass it off as information that's out of character for you. Like you have to go to the stretches of your knowledge. You know what I mean? Like, I know these little bits about Arkansas, so you can like bullshit knowing about Arkansas, because you don't want every character to be
right.
You, because you can only write what's within your imagination.
There's only so many stories you can read about a pasty, white, overweight, autistic dinosaur nerd before you're like, God, I'm so sick of this asshole.
Yeah, like I read My Savior and I'm like, oh, that was really cool. And I'm like, I'm gonna click on every other story this guy writes, and it's gonna be about dinosaurs. And then lo and behold, it's all about it's not. I'm kind of amazed that you don't do that. Though I do tend to make all of my stories about dildos because they're interesting to me.
Dildos are extremely interesting. Okay,
they're bizarre. That they come in varying shapes and sizes.
About dildos or dinosaurs now?
Dinosaur dildos.
Thing. They're out there. Yeah.
That's the thing. Whenever you see a dildo that is the size of an actual human penis, it's weird. You're like, why isn't this grotesquely oversized? Oh man, monsters. Dildo zoology.
Oh, gee.
What makes an effective dildo? Well, I think it's the unknown. It's the unknown and its function.
There's some scary implications there.
And where it's hiding.
I know where yours is hiding.
I wouldn't say it's hiding. I would say smuggling is. What should we like maybe wrap up with one more cryptozoology monster?
Sure, sounds good to me.
Oh man, this has been ridiculous.
The idea.
So what is another big cryptozoology thing? I'm struggling to think of a good one.
I'm trying to think of like ones that I like know about, so I can actually contribute to the conversation. Because there's plenty that I've like heard about, but like don't know anything about them. And there's others that just are not at all interesting, like skunk ape.
Skunk ape. Have you heard of these people that are trying to say that there's like this thing called the duck-billed platypus? Fucking. Like, that's completely unbelievable.
It's got the head of a duck on the body of a beaver with these venomous spurs in its ankles. I mean, yeah, come on.
Like, I'd sooner believe, like, is this being made by alchemists or something? Come
on. One day, the World Council of Alchemists just got together and said, hey, you know, it would be fun.
Now I'm just, like, imagining a board of alchemists in cloaks
at an office table,
just making biological shit posting.
Oh god! So that's where the echidna.
Yes, duck penises. Those are monsters.
Duck penises. Yes, they are, and so are duck.
Horrifying duck penises are also horrifying.
We all know, as everybody in the audience, I'm sure knows. Duck penises.
By now, anyone who is politically literate within the past 5 years will never stop forgetting about this ridiculous news.
Duck penises that are shaped like corkscrews. Well, here's the thing. You know, the reason why they're shaped like corkscrews and why ducks basically have turned rape into an evolutionary arms race is because the duck vagina is also corkscrew shaped. But it twists in the opposite direction.
I still can't wrap my head around how this works, and I don't know that I can keep food in my stomach long enough to grasp the finer points of duck sex.
Duck sex is bad. I mean, turtle sex, that's really out there.
Yeah, do go on.
There's not much to say.
Just pulling up Bad Dragon right now. Guys, let me tell you what I learned today about turtle sex.
I mean, they got big penises. That's all really to say.
You just go to AMA as an expert on turtle biology. It's like, I'm an expert on turtle biology. Ask me anything. And then all of the questions are about turtle sex. monsters.
You know, turtles actually get more virile as they get older.
Oh, do they?
150-year-old tortoises.
I was about to bring that up. Like, how old do turtles have sex? And the answer is, I guess, at most, they never stop.
Until they die. That's when they stop.
Probably from sex.
It's very exhausting if you're a giant tortoise.
Yeah, but every tortoise has got to get some hair.
Wow. God damn it.
And so slow and steady wins the race.
Oh, so that's what that's about.
Yeah, they're not in a hurry to lose their virginity. To like, if 40 is the level of virgin that you have to be as a human to get wizardry, like, to be a turtle wizard, you have to be like 140 to become a turtle wizard. And at that point, is it even worth it? Because you don't have many years of being a wizard left.
And then, I mean, what can turtle wizards do anyway?
Hopefully live longer. To just have, like, hyper sex the rest of their life.
This has led to probably the greatest tangent ever in the history of human discussion.
Oh, man. What was that? I think we had, like, a 10-minute conversation about the bullshit on David's bookshelf. Yes. God damn it.
Didn't somebody like comment saying like, oh, why you have this annoying banter? I'm like, oh, look, somebody who's clearly never seen the show before.
David could stand to cut a bit of it out at times, but yeah, that was fun.
You know, it was a couple weeks ago. I went to iTunes to leave a review for Midnight Marinara as per David's request. And I was looking at some of the other reviews.
What did he pay you for that?
He paid me in hugs and kisses. And anal, but don't tell Kayla.
Okay.
But I saw one of these reviews that...
Well, attempting really hard to avoid making jokes, but continue.
Anyway, so there's this one review that basically, it was like 1-star review, and it was like, this podcast is so unprofessional. It's like, it's just them talking. And I'm like, yes, how dare they have fun?
Isn't that what every fucking podcast is?
Like,
I thought there are podcasts that aren't just fucking talking.
Listen to them.
Well, I listen to very few podcasts, so I wouldn't know either.
But I mean, I like the ones that are just spontaneous bullshit.
Yeah, I like the ones that are related to horror because that's the only thing I care about.
Well, what that and dildos, right?
Yeah. You know what I like? I really like dildo reviews. There are dildo reviews out there. Yeah, there's this guy named, oh man, what's the guy's name? Sexbad. Sexbad does dildo reviews. He used to be, shit you not, he used to be a video game critic / let's player at times. Now all he does is dildo reviews, and people will send him dildos to review. Like Bad Dragon sends him like dildos quarterly to review.
Wow, that's... Yeah, well, you know what?
And he makes his biases known. He's like, by the way, I'm a gay bottom, and so this is going to, temper my review. I don't know how this works on a vagina.
Well, at least he's honest, Full disclosure is important.
Mm-hmm.
For any reviewer.
Full enclosure is also important when you're reviewing a dildo. It's like playing a video game and not beating it and then reviewing it. It's like, no, you gotta beat the video games. Like, you gotta conquer the dildo. All of it.
Get that nod in there.
Yeah. Oh my god. What have I done to your podcast?
Well, you have vastly improved it.
Oh man.
I can't. Here's what's great about this podcast. You know what's really great about this podcast? More time has been allotted to the discussion of dildos than of dinosaurs. For a podcast hosted on my channel, that's a fucking miracle.
Welcome to the dildo nest. That is what you store your dildos in.
Oh, is it?
Is in a nest. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You have your love nest, and then beside it, you have your dildo
The nest
nest.
is much bigger, by the way.
Yeah, it's a storage closet. Dildo Emporium. I think we're out of things to say
At
about
this
monsters.
point, yes.
So let's continue on to part 2 of this podcast,
God.
where we get to the real meat of the discussion. Dildos.
That podcast is not happening anytime soon.
Not that people are allowed to listen to. It's going to be paid content.
I got. Are you going to put it on your Patreon?
Yeah, this is going to be our patrons only. Our 5-hour dildo conversation.
What, only 5 hours? Come on.
That's some endurance.
Listen to me. You listen here. I expect at least as much time on dildos as you gave to Happy Happy.
Oh, man. Like a baby holding an apple.
Now I'm just picturing the Happy Happy puppet as a dildo.
Have you seen the Hello Kitty vibrator?
I haven't, and yet somehow my mind has already spontaneously generated it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think we should be wrapping up now.
So, thank you all for joining us here at the Raptor's Nest, where we have important, sophisticated, profound, insightful discussions on a variety of topics. So, I am Prasakor, the first, last, and only, and I was here joined today by the perfunctory Dead Palette. I'm not even sure if that's a compliment.
You know what the word perfunctory means? It means like compulsory.
Oh, okay, so you have to be on the podcast now. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I can live with that. All right, is there anything you want to plug at all?
Well, after this conversation about dildos, I guess it's pretty obvious what I want to plug. I suppose Big.
All right.
Go Google Dead Palette Big.
Trust me, you will not be disappointed.
Question mark?
Trust me, you will not be disappointed. Alrighty. So, good night, everybody, and take care. All right.